Okay. Good evening. Hello, everyone. I'm Pat Traylor, and I'm the president of the Associated Press Photo Managers, APPM. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of our APPM Video Hangouts. Tonight, we're doing something a little different and talking with just kind of hosting an open discussion on election coverage, what we're planning, issues we're facing, common things that we as photo managers and visual managers are dealing with going into the election that is just 1 week away. So we've decided we'd kind of open up to everybody this time around. You can still, obviously, if you're watching through the how we've been doing it through the Google Hangout on Air, which is now through YouTube Live. You can watch it that way, but I've posted on the website the direct link to the Hangout. So if you want to join us right here in the video chat, feel free to do so. So currently we've got APPM board members Barry Arthur from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, and Jeremy Harmon from the Salt Lake Tribune, and Kathy Kieliszewski from the Detroit Free Press, and Becky from Ohio University. So welcome everyone, and how do we want to kick things off tonight? I think maybe if each one of us wants to just start and talk a little bit about the kind of coverage we've got planned and any particular issues that we're looking at there. So yeah, I don't know.
I have a question for everybody. Yeah. So in addition to normal election night coverage, I mean, are you guys trying to get a kind of a read on if there's going to be folks out at polling places, monitoring things and keeping an eye on stuff? There's been a lot of talk about that. And how much are you paying attention to that kind of stuff in your various communities as you're planning your coverage for the actual day? Are you worried about that at all, or?
Yeah, we haven't. I mean, here in Denver, we haven't heard too much about anything crazy. I think, like everywhere, I've heard stuff about random poll monitors, but we'll have. Right now, we've got planned. We'll be out during the day at polling places, but here in Colorado, we've got mail-in ballots. It's the first mail-in presidential election. So most of them we're thinking are not going to be drop-off or at polling stations. So yeah, so we're expecting not too much at the polling stations because most people will have mailed in their ballots already, or they'll just be dropping them off on election day. I don't know, but that's something we're looking for. If there's people out hanging out around the drop boxes or hanging out around polling places, that's what we're certainly watching for it. But we haven't heard of anything in particular. You guys?
In Detroit, because Detroit is predominantly African American, we've had instances in the past where we've had Republican poll watchers, particularly focused on polling places in the city. And so we're aware of that, and we'll be looking for that type of thing. Because there's such a get out the vote effort here, and a lot of busing to get people to the polls because a lot of people don't have transportation, and our bus systems is less than ideal for a lot of people. There definitely is this kind of, I don't know the feeling to kind of describe, but basically that if Detroiters don't get out to vote, that it could really impact. I mean, we're a blue state, and we've been a blue state for a long time, but it's because Detroiters vote. And the efforts to get them out to vote. And Republicans know that. And so they make a concentrated effort to kind of be there. Whether or not there's going to be levels of intimidation or any of those types of tactics. We're doing a story right now about what poll watchers are, kind of how they're trained and what they're supposed to train to do. And so it'd be interesting to see if they actually follow through on some of their training you know, we're mindful of that with anybody who's going out into the polls to shoot, to be watching for that. But it's not something that we're kind of like saying you're going to go out and just shoot poll watchers. If you're at a poll, you should be looking and paying attention to what you're seeing in that regard.
Didn't the Denver Post, didn't you guys have a story on poll workers being trained and what to do in case of a live mass shooting kind of scenario?
Yeah, I think there's been some of that training going on. Yeah, I don't think that, I don't believe we photographed that. But yeah, that's something we're certainly acutely aware of here. So we're always kind of on edge for anything like that. But I haven't, beyond that story, I haven't heard about too much that we're really looking out for there. I think with the mail-in thing, we're expecting it to be pretty low key out and about around town. Really, it has cut down a lot. Like we won't have any lines or anything like that. There will be some. I mean, there's some questions about if you. You'll be prosecuted if you mail in a ballot and then also go in to vote. Trump has criticized that about Colorado polling place or the mail-in system, but there's a bipartisan election commission here that's monitoring it, and they are pretty confident that it's going to work pretty well.
Is this the first year you've done that, Pat?
It's the first presidential election, but we did have an all mail-in ballot for the last the gubernatorial election and last Senate race 2 years ago. So, and that worked, very well.
So, how long does it take to tabulate those votes?
I think they've started now. They've already started counting the ones that have come in. So we're hoping it'll be pretty quick on election day, that it won't be too long. But a lot of people like me have gotten them mailed out and haven't turned them in yet. But and I'll probably be dropping them off at a drop box here, later this week.
Interesting.
Yeah, so hopefully we're not sitting around the newsroom at midnight still. But it's hard to say. I'm sure we will for other reasons, but who knows.
With that too, I mean, out of curiosity, how are you all, with that whole idea of, are there poll watchers or not? Are you guys going to have somebody like in the newsroom who's like following Twitters and things like that to try to like make sure people are where things are happening? Should you hear about them, or how are you manning that?
We've got a reporter who's trying to kind of take the temperature on that out here. Utah, we've got a handful of militia groups who, there's always a lot of noise, but there was a guy, militia, headed up a militia group just east of here, who was scouting out targets to bomb. And he got arrested recently, and one of the targets he was scouting out was the BLM office, which is in the same office complex that we're in. So we're pretty happy that they got him before he did anything.
That's good.
But it's hard to say. I mean, it's in the back of my mind. It's something that we need to be aware of on that day. But yeah, I don't know specifically how to plan for it. It's just we'll be paying attention, and we've got everybody working that day. So if something comes up, we'll be ready to go. But I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Pat.
No, go ahead. I was going to take it somewhere else. So
I can stop, and we can do that if you'd like.
No, that's good.
We have a designated web team in what we call kind of their social component. On that web team, we have a couple of people kind of designated to different things, and so they'll be monitoring Twitter along with some folks on the Metro desk. The biggest caution we always have is that just because somebody posted on Twitter doesn't mean it's something that's newsworthy enough for us to jump on. And so, you always have to kind of be that one in the newsroom that's kind of like, well, wait a minute, unless it elevates, to something crazy. But a lot of times, you know, I don't want to, I'm not besmirching the web desk at all. Their job is to see it and communicate it. And it's our job to kind of vet the news value of it. And that's one of the things that we end up doing kind of all day long, is trying to decide, is that really at a level where I need to grab somebody from something else they're doing and move them to that spot. Because oftentimes by the time you get there, whatever it was that was tweeted out is gone. And even if it's visual or whatever, is always the other question. So, you know, that knee jerk on election day, you know, especially when you've got all hands on deck and you've got lots of things going on, you have to kind of say, okay, when are we gonna respond to that thing or not that thing? You know, and we hope that the photographers are also monitoring and communicating, you know, back to us if they're seeing stuff, so that a reporter might be able to get there to help do some reporting if something kind of, you know, goes out wonky at a specific precinct or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of, our election day plan it's much just a heightened version of, you know, any other news day. We'll have a plan in place, and that's to be covering all the various candidates on each race, and making sure we also have a lot of ballot initiatives in Colorado on our ballot. Different state initiatives and constitutional amendments. So there will be different watch parties for those, and then different watch parties for our various candidates on both sides. So it's, you know, we've made our plan of where we're going to have people. We'll have where we have photographers and videographers, and you know, we're going to be deciding, you know, this week what all we're going to try and do some Facebook Live stuff from. But, you know, as things develop, like in any news day, you know, if new things develop, we'll make the judgment at that time whether or not we kind of scrap parts of the plan and move on, you know, news elements that are going on.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys tend to focus all your polls, like poll coverage during the day, and then watch parties at night? I mean, I remember that's what we always did. There was like the morning group who would cover the polls as they were opening, and then kind of hit them throughout the day, right? But then,
yeah, that's just
a voting picture is a voting picture, right? So,
right.
Once you got those, move on to the watch parties, right?
Yeah, we're doing the mail-in ballot thing here this year too, so I don't know how much action there's going to be at the polls. You know, I mean, we'll go by and check them out, but I just don't even, you know, I don't expect. I don't expect to see what we normally see, because yeah, we're doing mail-in stuff too. You know, like I voted 2 weeks ago. You know,
yeah. We used to obviously, you know, you'd have we don't have as many editions as we used to, and we don't publish as much of the results in print anymore. So, you know, that a need to actually go out and fill with photos like a first edition before the election results come in is no longer there. And so, you know, we would be out in all 3-4 of our counties. We would, you know, make photo pages. We'd have a national page and a local page, and we might do a candidates page, and then that all would go away going into the next edition as it results and parties started happening. We don't have that anymore. So we've really pulled back on some of the poll shooting, because it is a polling picture is a polling picture. I mean, we want to go out and try to represent each county, and if there's we have some ballot initiatives and things like that, and some county commissioner races that are a big deal, but it won't be to the extent. I think a lot of what we're going to do this year is kind of be ready for something to happen, as opposed to kind of just shooting just to shoot. You know, the GOP canceled the state GOP canceled their party in Michigan and wanted to funnel their money into campaigning. So it's like, we don't even have that to go to at night. So we're kind of like, okay, now what do we do? You know,
we've got the opposite situation here, because Trump has so divided Utah that the Republican Party is doing 3 watch parties that night, because the different camps don't want to spend time with each other that night. So we've got 3 different Republican watch parties in Salt Lake City that night. And it's because you've got the Trump people And then you've got a huge contingency in the Republican Party here of anti-Trump people, and they don't want to have anything to do with each other on that night. So they're doing their own things. It's really it's really interesting.
That's interesting.
Right on. Well, looks like we've got another person popping in here. Welcome to the discussion.
Thank you.
Where are you coming from?
I am in Boston. I am a photo editor of a small newspaper online for the Hispanic community in Boston, Massachusetts.
Cool.
Right on.
Welcome.
Well, kind of going off the watch parties and things like that. What kind of, Kathy, I know that you've brought this up at the last board calls. What I heard is what kind of prep work have you done for access to things? Or like, I've found that, in covering elections around here, right, I'm in a very rural area. There's a lot of education that has to be done when I show up in terms of like, I'm allowed to be here, in terms of that question of you can't photograph people who are voting. And it's like, well, I can't photograph their ballot, but right, I'm allowed to photograph them voting, them being here. How do you guys handle that?
I listened to Lyndon last time, and I wrote letters to each one of the county clerks, and got response back from two of them, and basically one had forwarded my email to all the precinct captains, and then another one basically said, I'm forwarding this to all the precinct captains. I'm reaching back out to the last one who actually, I have one of our photographers knows her personally from another story. So I was like, hey, you need to talk to Lisa Brown and make sure that her people know this. But then I printed out their Secretary of State's election precinct guidelines and made copies for all the photographers with pertinent information so they could bring those to the polls with them when, and if a precinct captain says, you can't be here, we can point right to that and say, well, this actually says we can. We do have two communities that we know are just been problems in the past. And I'm like, avoid those two cities. There's no special elections happening in those particular cities. There's no reason why, and we can go to the neighboring city in that county and probably have no problem at all. So if you want to go to, instead of Southfield, go to Hazel Park, you're probably not going to have any problems. But if you walked into Southfield, you're just going to give yourself a headache. So it's kind of trying to take the path of least resistance. But we did do prep work ahead of time. Thanks to Linda, that was a good idea that we did that.
I thought it was really interesting. I talked to Lyndon about that after the fact because I missed the call. And I can't think of a time in my whole time in Utah where we've had an issue with that. So I don't know. I guess knock on wood, hopefully it doesn't happen this year. But I'd never even really heard of that happening.
Yeah, we've had a little problem with that in the past, but not a lot. And sometimes it's just the uneducated, poll worker. Generally, these are senior citizens. They do it once a year. They're not that familiar with some of the rules for media. But the other question I was going to bring up, Kathy, do you rely on that many photos from polling places though? I mean, because we'll shoot some early, but then we'll fill those through the night with more live art from various events. So they kind of slide, out the
right
door.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same here. But again, because we don't have as many editions anymore, we literally, what we shot in the morning might, end up on an inside page somewhere. And then the party stuff. I mean, and obviously being the national election, we're spending most of our time watching wires and seeing what's coming from, the two presidential. Here in Michigan, our local races are so insignificant compared to what's happening at the national level that it's not going to be that big a deal. I mean, and we're having the same issue with, the anti-Trump Republicans and the Trump Republicans, like people were talking about, oh, we should send somebody to go with the Secretary, or not a Secretary of State's, our Attorney General. He's not going to come within this with a 10-foot pole because he's running for re-election, or he's running for governor in 2 years. He doesn't even want to come near this. So he's just going to probably put his head under a blanket and not come out on election day, So there's all this stuff going on that's causing us to kind of rethink how we approach, who we're with on any given day. I mean, we're in the planning stages of sending one of our feature reporters out into what would be a predominantly Republican Trump area and kind of watch with them that are just citizens and not necessarily elected officials, seeing if we can get a sense of the vibe of what's happening anyway the election goes. And because we just don't have any Republicans per se to hang out with. I don't know if that answered your question, Barry, but I'm rambling.
And I think one of the biggest things we've wrestled with through the years, and this year's not a big year because we don't have really any constitutional officer races. We just have one. We have one Senate race and several congressional races that they're okay. They're not. There's one Senate race is probably the most competitive, but our biggest wrestling match has been finding the candidates. You know, like we like to get them twice. We hit them where they're voting or what they're doing early in the day, and then we want to know where they're going to be at night. And that's been our every year is the same thing we run into. It's just like, you know, where are you going to be? And it's invariably the last minute. We find out that morning or that day where they're going to be or early and then where they're going to be late. So it makes planning of where to send folks sometimes a real challenge.
Absolutely. Yep. We don't have that this year. We've had that in previous years. But we'll see, because again, we had the 2 county commission seats that we're really following, and whether or not the one who we didn't endorse him for the first time in 20 years, whether or not he'll tell us where he's going to be or not. That'll be interesting. He's like, I'm not telling you where I'm going. So.
Right. Yeah.
Are you guys getting pretty good access to the candidates for the most part? I mean, outside of I don't know, we haven't told you yet, you know, but is anybody getting pushback on, you know, like quiet candidates who are just not going to say anything about where they are?
We know where everybody's going to be. The problem is that we run into is, you know, like they'll have a big party at a hotel downtown or something like that. And so we're down in the ballroom and the candidates are all up in private rooms somewhere, and that we can't get them to tell us what rooms they're in, when they're coming down. You know, one of our representatives just kind of just was radio silence from her on election night, and we got a tweet like within minutes, you know, like 1 or 2 minutes before she came downstairs and came into the room to celebrate with all her supporters when she won her election. And so we're just there waiting, you know, for, you know, at least we knew she was upstairs and she was going to come down at some point. But, you know, it was a close race, and we barely got a photo into print on that one. But
Have you guys found that's gotten tighter over the years? I mean, it's been a while since I've personally done the candidate coverage at night. But Ray, I remember when they used to let you in their hotel room with them with their families for 30 minutes, you know? It's not all night, but is that for all you guys, have you watched that like Clamp Down lately?
yeah.
You're dating yourself, Becky.
I know.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time we were in a hotel room. Actually I do, but it was our first female governor, but that was a long time ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last time I remember doing that personally was probably 14 years ago.
Wow.
It's been a while.
I didn't mean to date myself that much.
Yeah.
Well, you did.
Yeah, none of the elections I've seen here, we've given that kind of access. It's kind of they come out on stage for 5 minutes. You know, if they lose, it's
Right.
5 minutes. If they win, maybe a little longer, and then they'll go off, and that'll be pretty much it. So, but yeah, other than figuring out where we need to be, what are all kind of workflows are you guys looking at, in your newsroom on election night? Like, how many editors, do you have multiple editors there doing multiple things? Like, is one person handling things for print while another person kind of builds photo galleries or handles what kind of, is anyone doing any kind of live video type things, or what is this situation just like looking like on your desks in a week?
Well, I'll be. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay. Well, so I'll be in running print. We have a system automated so that when photos hit the FTP, if we use the special instructions field in Photo Mechanic, it'll automatically attach photos to the stories online. So the only real managing we have to do as far as galleries go is just go in and make sure that captions are good and stuff. But as photos are coming in, they automatically go online. So I don't need somebody here to do that. So I'll mostly be handling print. If the with the parties that are right downtown, because a lot of them are close enough to the office, if it's getting late and I feel like I need to go over and kind of help edit on site, I'll do that. Like the situation I was talking about where the candidate, she entered the room within, it was less than 3 minutes before our deadline, before we had to send our first pages. And so the photographer was shooting her coming into the room. I was standing right next to him. I took his card, ran over to a computer, and we had a photo of her coming in and being greeted by her supporters. We had it to the paper before she walked across the room and got on stage. So if we have to do something like that, I'll run over and help. But I know, this year's just going to be weird because Utah's been a reliable red state for so many years, and we've got an independent candidate running here. There's an independent candidate who's really popular here, and he might actually win the electoral votes for Utah. And so that's another one. I've got 3 Republican watch parties. I've got this guy, this independent candidate, and then we've got the Democrats that night that we have to be with. And I've got it's gonna be a stretch for us to get all that done, but we'll figure it out. So.
Do you have the staff to cover all those? Because I know a lot of people that I've been talking to, they just don't have the people to get photos of as much as they'd love to get photos, right?
We'll be okay so long as nothing else happens that night.
Right.
Like if things get crazy at a polling place somewhere, it's like, well, crap, now what? But if everything kind of, knock on wood, goes according to plan, we'll be okay. But if we get one little hitch, which this year, who knows, it could get pretty nutty.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I didn't introduce myself properly. My name is Joe Richardson. And the question that I have is, in the polling location where you are people allowed to go on with cameras?
At the polling location where we are?
Locations?
Correct.
In our state, yes.
I mean, in the state where you are.
Yeah,
yes.
In Michigan, yes. There's what they call a public area that we're supposedly we're designated to stand in if the precinct person who's running it says we have to. I mean, the goal is you don't shoot people's actual ballots, but you can shoot people voting.
Yeah, same here, same kind of thing. But again, mostly for us, it's going to be just drop-off locations because everyone already has their own ballot. So it's going to be like on the street corner, mostly for us.
Sure, or even around here, I know there's billboards out for early voting locations all over the place here. So people are just kind of, I don't know if you guys have that where we are. It's like big signs saying "Vote here today."
Yeah.
Right. All over the place. So people are kind of spread out a lot more.
I mean, if you're unsure about the laws in your state, if you go online to your Secretary of States and search like precinct rules or something, you should be able to find what the guidelines are.
I had that information, but I would like to know more about how the regulation that we have are particularly true in other states, and that is the reason of my question.
Mm-hmm. I thought Kathy had a great idea of printing that out and then having photographers carry it with them, so that it's literally no questions asked. It's if they're being told something different, being able to bring out the letter, is kind of a nice way to calm it very quickly. before things get stressful for people, right?
Right.
So I thought that was a great idea. Yeah.
And I don't know if you missed this. I sent a letter to each one of our county clerks that handles elections, just basically saying, we know the law and we'll be out, so please inform, the folks who are running the precincts to know that we're within our rights to do our normal news gathering. So, I mean, I did get response from 2 of the counties, and I'm pushing on 1 more to make sure that they received the letter and are at least acknowledged that they won't be able to precinct, like make these precinct captains, especially some ones that get a little kind of power hungry on that day.
Yeah.
But then we also decide to, we're not going to get in a fight with a precinct. We literally, you can go another block over and hit another school, and you're in another precinct.
That is a good idea.
Yeah. So I think one of the things we're going to try and do that's a little different. I remember 4 years ago on election day was I think my first day on the job here, so it was a little wild. Pretty crazy night to start a job. And we had a live stream video going the whole time. This year we're not going to do that, but we're going to try and do a couple different Facebook Live events. We have it set up so at the main GOP headquarters and main Democrat headquarters, we're going to have a videographer there who will be able to take a reporter live, and we'll do a Facebook Live from each of those locations, and then we're hoping to do at least 1 more from in the newsroom with our DPTV news anchor and a couple of analysts as some results start coming in. So we've had some success doing Facebook Lives with some of the rallies recently, so we're hoping that is going to be an engaging thing for our audience online. So we'll have a couple people at each. We'll have a photographer and a videographer at both of those locations, and then we'll have 2 editors, photo editors here or video editors here, helping to get all those logistics figured out to get that off with hopefully minimal technical glitches. So it should be quite interesting.
We'll be doing something similar. The location stuff is going to be predicated on news. If there's not, again, because our elections here are not that riveting, I don't imagine there'll be much to see at the parties unless something happens. But we'll be doing a top of the hour report after the polls close, the first one starting at 8 p.m. And we've got some scheduled guests coming in. One of our pollsters who's doing some of the exit polling, along with a data analysis person who's analyzing data, and then some reporters and things like that. So we did that last year. And it wasn't Facebook Live, it was just live stream, so it was pretty effective. And we're hoping that because we've built a better audience on Facebook Live, like people are coming to expect us to do that. And we had a pretty decent one yesterday where we talked about, our endorsement was no surprise. We've endorsed some Republicans in the past, but for presidential, not for a very long time. And so it wasn't so much that, it wasn't like Arizona, who, the Republic who endorsed, who didn't endorse the Republican, but we explained the process in which we come up with our answer and the things that we look at and the justifications that we do to, make those decisions on all of them, from school boards down to, all the way up to presidential. And that was, other than, the Facebook comments were fun to read, but it was, it was fairly well received, and there was, lots of people watching, or at least Facebook lots. So
cool.
Now, are you all, as you're putting galleries out online, are you putting like one photo editor dedicated to just that, handling everything coming in from the photographers, or is it kind of like everybody multitasking on things like slide galleries and that kind of
for
stuff?
us, it's multitasking because we can start a gallery and people can just add to it. So if you're the editor kind of at that moment not in the meeting or attending to some other news, and a photographer sends in a batch of photos, you can just quickly go and jump and throw those into the gallery. So it'll be kind of as you'll jump where as needed. At some point we will shift to a more print focused kind of attention after that 8 o'clock hour, but for the most part it'll be all day long. And then the web desk helps out with that too. They'll say, oh, I'll move those through and whatever. So yeah, it's a nice kind of exchange of everybody kind of pitching in whenever there's a gap that needs to be filled.
Yeah, that's pretty much how we'll handle it. I mean, there'll be certain things that, like we know one of our video editors is going to be like, handling Facebook Live stuff. But probably there'll be about 3 of us that'll probably dip in and out of different aspects of the galleries and print and social media. So yeah, be a lot of work.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I think Becky, you mentioned this in your email, this idea of what happens when the results aren't in and the deadline has passed, and what does your front page look like the next day? And nobody's come out, nobody's conceded, or, that's the thing that keeps me awake at night, is what happens when it's way past and you have to make that decision on what that front page is going to look like.
So do you guys come up with contingencies now, like possibilities, or?
We haven't talked about it yet, but I'd be curious what other people have been talking about.
It reminds me of Bush and Gore.
Yeah.
We really didn't know what was going to happen there. You just go with whatever the story is at that moment. I mean, you can't really plan.
Yeah, for me, visually, it's you just, like, if that happens, you just kind of go with something that reflects that uncertainty. If it's running like a picture of both photos, hey, I have a picture of both camps, kind of, watching results roll in and they don't know what's going on.
Sorry about it.
No problem.
I guess one of the things that got me thinking about was like what happened to so many publications, unfortunately, with the DNC, right? Where all the headlines were Clinton was nominated, Clinton accepted, right? But then the only photos that people had were of Bill, right? And so at that point, and some people got like a screenshot of her on the large screen and some didn't. And so that's where I was wondering is anybody talking about it, up beforehand, in case, that kind of in case thing, in case we have to rush to print before we have something, right? To avoid one of those moments,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always been, like Jeremy said, and Barry said, trying to find a photo that reflects the uncertainty, that you're not going to run a picture of of either one of the candidates on their own. Maybe you would do, I think the standby option is to do, 2 photos right next to each other of each candidate, like giving their, I don't know what's going on speech or something like that. Or you just run, people looking at the TV with like a puzzled look on their face or something like that. Just something that reflects that state of, we don't, there is no result yet, which is the story. So, definitely just trying to find something that doesn't push it one way visually, one way or the other, So, and those are just, I think that's, that's just going to come up that night. Like, there's no way necessarily that we're going to plan for any particular presentation. It's just if the story is uncertainty, we'll find photos then that reflect that.
The great thing is now, I think we're more positioned in line to do this, is we can continue the story even after the paper goes to bed. We can put that in the paper, something prominent saying, this hasn't been decided, but go here, give them a web page or the site. And then we can continue coverage throughout the night, and updating these things. And may be well aligned within the morning when people are picking up their papers to go, oh, I'll go look at this online, and you've got a potentially nice presentation. Even you could even do a PDF of a new version of the paper. You could put up if people want in an e-reader. I mean, it's we're in a good time to do that kind of thing. Staffing, we're not always in a good time because people on election day, people are generally exhausted by midnight. But that's an obligation we have to make to keep our readers informed. So.
Do you guys have like a next day plan already, like in the work? The morning
We
and
don't.
after?
We don't. We probably should, but we don't.
We've got our big election planning, final planning meeting on Thursday. So we'll be delving into, I would assume that, and just all the different components of the web coverage then. So I would assume we'll have some sort of plan, but a lot of it again is going to just depend on, that night on what happens. So, we'll be watching and listening and just trying to figure out what's going on, and we'll be there if when we need to be.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things I'm looking for as somebody not covering it, right? To see how the different publications handle it the next morning, right? Especially some of your, a lot of your papers are one of the largest papers in the state, right? And so the presidential election, we're all going to know that from turning on the TV in the morning or, opening up Facebook the next day, as soon as you wake up, right? But those local elections are going to be really interesting to see what comes out if those results come out late, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'll be interested to see how different places are handling that the next day of, getting those results out where people are really coming to these different papers to find out what happened in their local elections.
Right.
They didn't know, right?
Yeah, we'll be displaying those, I think in years past we've had one article where it's here's all the results, and those will be updated all night. Really, we'll be tracking them all night, and we'll be able to do that. Something pretty successful that we've done on our video team this year is we made a text video, just a simple explainer video for each of the ballot initiatives. And so those have done really well on stories, gotten a lot of video views, and on social. And so that's probably one thing we'll update. We'll do a comprehensive, just a simple text-based explainer video with some photos and text, just giving you the results of each of the ballot measures. So that's one of the video things that we've got planned for the next day, or for that night, but that could go into the next day, as things are counted.
Yeah, Becky, one thing we do is we do compile a list of every local race in the state, every local initiative, down to the small municipalities. So one thing I'll be working with the team with on election night, I've been working with building this big database, and we'll have folks monitoring channels of different places to get those race totals, and throughout the night posting them. We're kind of like one of the single sources you can go to get all those local race results, and then obviously we couldn't get those in the paper that night. So what we'll do is we use that race that we'll compile them online and then export that and print them in the paper on the Thursday following the race, and just so everybody can see in the small towns of how their local race for sheriff or county clerk or comptroller went.
Sure. Yeah, I think I know where I live. I'm in a super rural area, right? So there isn't even a photographer in our local paper, right? Yeah. So in terms of how they're churning it out the next day, they don't have the staff to man the all night, type of coverage and election map thing. So I'll be interested to see, is it going to be a headline that pops up with the article update because there is no live election coverage map? Now they may find some sort of a widget to plug in, right, to kind of keep that going. But I know a lot of different places are struggling with that of how how do we cover this? I see you nodding your head too, right? Of how do we cover this when there's just nobody to cover it, you know? But we're the place that's getting out our, you know, local seats and our small election ballots. We're the news on that too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to AP before about, you know, they pay somebody in every polling place or every county throughout the state to gather all this polling information. And I've, you know, suggested, why don't you just get it all, you know, and make a deal to sell it to the, you know, some of the individual papers or even, you know, a statewide paper at an increase in price, because it would certainly save us a lot of effort and labor, and it might, you know, maybe worth it if we put a, you know, pencil to it.
Well, gosh, I mean, that would be killer for like places like where I am, where it's, you know, we see these signs for judges and things like that, and you know, these races that have been really contentious going on, but it becomes, when you'll find out about those is kind of a question mark.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
Like here in Massachusetts, there is a lot of interest about the regular election, but the more interest is about question number 2 regarding the school system. People are worried. Or there was a question about raising more school that is going against the. There is more money put into the election that need to be with the school committee with the regular election. So question number 2 is the more important problem here, because the question is to raise the minimum school that, how can I say, the charter school, bringing the charter school from 12 to 3. I'm sorry, the library is closed and I had to go.
No. Yeah, the different ballot initiatives are certainly going to be hard to cover. Like if one, we do have an initiative to cover the to create a state healthcare system, single payer healthcare system, universal healthcare in Colorado. We don't expect that's going to pass, but if at the last minute that changes, it's going to be throw off our planning, and we'll have to scramble somebody to get over there. So all those different ballot initiatives I know are interesting to cover. A lot of different issues.
It's going to be the more interesting question to cover where I live right now.
Right on. Well, is there anything else we didn't cover that we wanted to get to? We're close to our hour. I don't know. You guys have anything else you wanted to hash out? I think we covered a lot of good ground.
Yeah, I mean, if y'all think about it, you know, underneath this Hangout post on the Facebook page, post, you know, links to what y'all are doing. If you try something different, or, you know, something came out better than expected, or you kind of solved an issue, you know, share the idea. Because I know from what I'm hearing, a lot of y'all are still talking about what you're going to be doing this week, you know, as it's approaching, right? So I think it'll be interesting. And even, hey, if there's freelance photographers out there watching about how you're going about covering it, I know that's huge in our area, is freelancers getting out there to cover things who aren't necessarily working with a newsroom staff, you know, to figure out how to go about it, right? Share the ideas away. This is going to keep coming up, right? So,
indeed. Well, good luck to us all, and it'll all be over soon. So, only one more week.
Yep.
One more week.
Yeah, we have Hillary here, Ivanka, and Trump Jr. all here within the next 3 days. I'm like, can you just leave us?
Wow.
Yeah, Trump
You're gonna have a good week.
Twice this weekend. and we'll
They were
have
here yesterday. He was here
we'll have
yesterday.
Bill, Chelsea, and Bill are going to be here
Oh.
this week. So, and we're hearing Trump may himself come back again. So we'll see.
Wow.
You guys.
Busy.
Yeah. Bill came through here. That's about all we ever got. So.
Right on.
Rest
All
up,
right.
guys. So you're ready for next week.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hang in there, everyone.
Yep.
We'll do it.
Hey,
Good luck.
Becky,
The fatigue will still be a memory, right? Say what?
Yeah.
did you know Nate got a job? Nate Smallwood?
No.
Yeah, he's going to the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. So he left. His last day as my intern was yesterday. So I just wanted you to know.
Sad. Yeah. Sad for him, but sad for you all, but great for him, right? So
I was able to bring a local person in for the next 2 months, so I'm all right.
oh, good.
Awesome.
All right. Well, take care, guys.
Okay. Thanks so much
Thanks,
again, everyone, for watching. And we'll, I tried something a little different. Hopefully we can do another event like this again. So on behalf of everyone with APPM, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, and watch for another one coming up in November after elections,
After
but
the
not
elections,
on elections.
yes. There is life after the election. So hang in. All right. Thanks again. Good night.
Good night.